Hey everyone, welcome to Dungeon Bit, and if the title of this video caught your eye, then yeah, I fully believe it, and if you disagree, then we're gonna be best friends. When I say travel, I'm actually gonna be covering overland travel and cave and dungeon delving, and even though it's the spooky season, as you can see, you should consider this for every session that you run in any system. So, why do I think travel should be scary? Well, regardless of what system you're playing, regardless of the level of magic or sci-fi, and regardless of your power level as players, travel and delving both involve you leaving the location of safety and venturing into the outside world. If you're looking at a classical medieval fantasy game like D&D, Pathfinder, or my game Sanctum, then local folks who live in realistic or fantasy settlements rarely go outside their barricaded walls because of the dangers outside, whether that's wolves, bandits, or roaming monsters. And if you're still not on board, look at the likes of Star Wars, a setting where people can have spaceships of varying sizes that can all go through light speed with relative ease, and still, Luke Skywalker and his family don't leave Tatooine, and Luke Skywalker has never left the desert planet once and only does when a princess needs saving. And why? Well, like the fairy tale farm boy that he is, he's oath-bound to his aunt and uncle to stay. But if you think that is the only reason, and if he didn't make that promise, then he'd be Star Trekking across the universe like the super fun carnival ride that it is, then I point to when he tried to look for R2, and was very quickly almost killed by Tusken Raiders. Outside of the homestead for all manner of peoples, be they rich or poor, or in a sci-fi setting or a fantasy setting, is a danger. For medieval peasantry, you might be picked off by any number of threats and get lost in a dense forest, only for it to swallow you whole like a very real life missing persons case. And for sci-fi moisture farmers, not only do you have to worry about the twin suns burning you to a dehydrated husk on a desert planet, but also Tusken Raiders and desert fauna like crate dragons. And let's not forget, even if you have a little encounter on the way with some Jawas or a group of locals, then they might just fleece you of all of your cash or straight up kill you in the desert. So that's what I think from a setting and world perspective. These games that we run have worlds that should be treacherous to travel through. Why do you think there are so many games that give us quests where you have to escort an NPC? Because the world is dangerous for them. I mean, as a very well-known example, look at Lord of the Rings. Half of those movies is just Frodo and Sam going through a hellish hiking trip, facing off against things that would leave a soldier of Gondor shivering in their boots. But maybe that's not you. Maybe you picked up a game with a monster manual or bestiary and thought, nah, the outside world is literally as safe as houses. Well, from a gameplay perspective then, if travel doesn't carry a sense of threat and danger, then it's just boring. I made a video earlier this year about travel, and it got a lot of attention considering my channel size, and I mentioned ways in which travel can be done, with one of them being, you can just fast travel to the next place and skip travel. But you would probably want to do that because you don't think travel is interesting. And it's probably not interesting, not because you haven't put enough colourful shopkeepers to find on the road, but because travel is so trivial and non-threatening in your game, then you might as well just skip it. So what is the solution? Do we need to leave our players terrified and not want to travel? Do we need to get them to leave our session close to tears from actual fear? No. No, of course not. Travel should be scary for your characters. Let's face it, you probably won't be scared of travelling because you're with your friends, at a table, with snacks, with a roof over your head, but you should ensure that travelling and delving doesn't feel like every other phase of the game, except now, the GM keeps asking you how you make camp. Sadly, I see this happening a lot in modern games and their approach to dungeoneering. Their games will probably give you a set of rules to help you make a dungeon, but then just leave you to figure it out, because it's basically just like a house underground, right? No. And this is what I feel is the reason why dungeon delving in any game has slowly lost its allure. Consider this. A dungeon, in our common association with the concept, is a pitch-black space filled with distant noises of mysterious origin echoing through it, stone panels scraping and cracking under your weight, skittering fauna suddenly darting away and startling you. You try to walk slowly and cover your mouth to dampen the sound of your own breathing. And why? Because there may be monsters waiting for you just around that corner. Dark vision in D&D has long been the bane of every DM's existence. It's in every meme, it's everywhere, as the characters who are supposed to be creeping in the dark so deep that their screams won't be heard as they cry out for help can see in the dark. and it's usually most people in the party. But even with dark vision or other games with similar concepts, remember, it's not perfectly lit up. It's still a murky haze of grey interiors, whereas new objects come into your dark vision or torchlight. Even just seeing a cobweb in the corner of a room can make your heart skip a beat. Without this fear being brought to the table, without the players feeling like they need to carefully creep through the dungeon to not be heard, then dungeons are actually kind of annoying. Where you either present a dungeon map that the players will easily blitz through because I can see it on the table, or one that you describe to the players, but then it leaves them asking you a million times for you to clarify what's in the room. This is why, in my game Sanctum, I'm doing things a little different in relation to travel and dungeon delving. Gloom sight is pretty rare, so most of the time you'll need a torch or a lantern to see, which makes you a very easy target. There is what's called a dungeon die, which is a d6 that ticks down when you search for traps, loot the room, do combat, etc. And when it ticks down all the way, it resets and triggers a roll, which could cause another combat or something else bad that could happen, like a collapsing ceiling. This ensures that you need to consider whether we loot for useful items, healing potions and the like, or even checking for traps. Or do you just go for it? Keep your head down, ignore all the possible dangers and loot, and just run to the end and hope the die doesn't tick down again. This all leads to dungeons that are dark, filled with tension, ones where you have to be smart to survive and can have time restraints, which all adds to this spooky feeling of exploring somewhere alien and unknown. In Sanctum, I present the players with a choice. Do you just want to get to the next area, basically fast travelling? Well, you could take the easy route, the path that traders take. But if you do, you probably won't find anything interesting or fun. Or you can take the hard road, the road less trodden, filled with natural hazards of the biome, horrid monsters, a place no one would dare go. But because of that, a place filled with new treasures and new adventures. Travel is a story that you choose how interesting it is, how much you discover, but it's a risk that you have to willingly take. Dungeon delving has you battle over whether you can risk to find loot or work on self-preservation, and travelling puts the best rewards behind the greatest of dangers. Travel should be loaded with hidden dangers, monsters, and the scariest thing of all, having to choose your own danger, your own consequences. Pick your poison. And that is interesting travel. Uncertainty, and whether you can bear to be certain of the scuttling horror that you can hear creeping up to you in the dark. Thank you for watching. I'm Ellis, and if you like this video, click the one on screen to see a bunch of games perfect for your spooky month. I love you all, and I'll see you next Saturday.